In either case, we are at the mercy of the markets. There are countries like Trinidad that has oil.
Yes.
They actually, what they do, instead of flaring the gas from the oil, they generate electricity with the gas. So instead of wasting that gas, they're generating it. So they're able to generate much more cheaply. Mexico does that too. Mexico generates a lot of its power with gas. But when they sell to us, they sell at market rates, right? They are not going to pass on the savings that they get from burning the gas as much as we would have wanted to. I think the best hope for us to get the cost of electricity down in Belize is if our oil industry was to generate enough gas that we could start doing what Mexico and Trinidad. Even in the U.S., I mean, the big push is to try to burn more natural gas to get the cost down. But the bottom line, if you're going to continue to burn oil, no, the price isn't going to come down. If it was just, if we don't have enough hydro resources to just generate totally with hydro, and the irony of it is that the hydro has just come in and helped us to hold the rates. If oil prices had remained, when we started the hydro, oil prices was like $20 per barrel. Today it's approaching $80 per barrel. That's a 400% increase in oil prices.
But Mr. Young, is there a search for alternatives to bring? I mean, to bring.
Yeah, we've done wind studies. I have seen wind plants in Curacao. I know they're trying to do in Aruba. I've seen in Prince Edward Island up in Canada and the U.S. The price of power from wind it's a little bit more expensive than what we are doing with the hydro, but it's worth investigating. We are in the Western Caribbean. The Western Caribbean doesn't have a very good wind regime. The Eastern Caribbean has much better, steadier winds. And wind is like hydro, well, like run-of-the-river hydro, because you put a big investment in, and then you have to depend on how much wind you get. The problem with wind, of course, is that you get the power when the wind is blowing, which might not correspond with when people want the power. But so you have to have some kind of backup.
Essentially what you're saying, if we continue with the current business model, we're not going to get reliable, low-cost electricity anytime soon.
We're going to get reliable. Right now, our generation sources are very reliable. We lost supply from Mexico. We lost one of the units at Chalillo during the year, and the Hydro Maya plant went down, and we still did not have any outages, rotating outages because of insufficient capacity. We had like maybe 1 or 2 hours while we reconfigured the system. So we actually, with Belcogen and VACA coming online, we're going to have about 40 to 50% reserve capacity. Our challenge right now in BEL is the transmission and distribution system. We have one transmission line from Mexico to Belize City, from Hydro to Belize City. They are what we call radial lines. Whenever anything happens to these lines, then we have a big outage. So we have a plan, which actually we had it in place about 3 years ago, to build a line from somewhere around Orange Walk into San Ignacio area, to basically create a loop and build another line from the hydro down into Belmopan. So you have transmission loops, which is what all the countries that have reliability have to do.
The rates are not going to go down, but are they going to go up?
We're going to, you know what? We don't particularly like rates going up. We fight hard.
Nor do we.
Of course. when I joined BL, like I told you, the rates was 44 cents per kilowatt hour. We got it down to 36 cents per kilowatt hour until the last price shock sent it right up back to 44 cents per kilowatt hour. But notwithstanding what you're saying, right? Electricity is probably the only commodity in this country which, if you track from the 80s right up until this point, you'll find that the price has actually it's actually gone back to where it was in the 80s, yes. And I think it's going to come down slowly over time if oil prices would just level out and we continue to doing the things that we're doing. But I won't, you know, I don't see any big sudden drop in electricity rates in Belize unless, like I said, we discover some big gas find, and then even that is going to take a little while to develop. To
normalize. Okay. We have to go to the final break of the evening, and when we come back, we'll have final words. Welcome back. We only have time now for final words. I'll start with you, Mr. Fleming.
Gosh, well, I don't think the environmental side of this conversation has really been that important from what and I quite understand that everybody's everybody's concerns are about price and sustainability. You know, some of the questions as I say, living on the river, I do have some serious concerns as to the long-term you know, position that we find ourselves in. If indeed the sedimentation problem is something that we can't solve, the very fact that we're drawing water from the bottom of the dam would indicate that if we do have these sedimentation problems, then we're continuously going to be having sedimentation coming down the river because we draw from the bottom of the dam. You know, that is, I would like to suggest that as far as water quality on the river, that it would be well worth our while for BCCI to invest in a study dealing with all the invertebrates and the small, you know, crustaceans and things which live in the river. Because this is a really good indicator as to how how healthy the river is.
Absolutely.
An idea which was brought to the table, which I thought was quite, you know, it was a nice idea, would be for UB to perhaps, you know, to have a facility somewhere out there where they would get involved in the water quality testing, so that there would be, you know, the DOE and BCCI and perhaps, you know, the university would be able to. There's always this big question mark about, are we getting true figures from the from the Department of the Environment or from BCCI? I mean, I'm not saying this is my thoughts, but it's, you know, people say it's a question mark. So just from our students' point of view, you know, it might be quite nice to get them involved in this. I know that there are, you know, a lot of concerns down the river, the Mennonite community who bring out something like 3 million gallons of water a month, you know, to not only the, you know, Spanish Lookout, but the settlements round about. You know, the water quality which they're pumping out right now is really not good. They're having problems with their rice, or they're questioning whether they will have problems with their rice production with the sprinkler systems they have, as to whether they're going to leave these little fines all over the leaf and the photosynthesis. There's just I would like to see a lot more dialogue going on, you know, between private and private sector, you know, BCCI and BEL, so that at least we can discuss openly these things which are going on without feeling that there's this air of secrecy, you know.
Accepted. A very valid point.
Yeah, I should say though that, as I mentioned earlier, that it's not so much secrecy, but because as a company that's been carried the code for everything, we have to make sure that we have our facts before we speak. I mean, I just spoke about what we think might be the issue, and I won't want anybody to run away and say that that is what we are saying is the issue, because the truth of the matter is that we have to check it out and see, right? But I should say, one is that, as I told you earlier, we see ourselves as that our job is to find solutions for problems, right? We feel pretty good about the design. We've had the worst earthquake in Belize since at least living history, and the dam has performed admirably. As I was explaining to you earlier, quite a few engineers have explained to me, if that dam were to fail from an earthquake, most of the buildings in Belize probably would have been destroyed. We also there were lots of talks about the dam wouldn't hold the water. That hasn't materialized. In fact, there were talks that the dam wouldn't produce the power. The dam has actually produced about 20% more than what we thought it was going to be producing. The verdict is still out on the wildlife, but so far there have been studies that's been done and monitoring. I think some environmental groups are doing the monitoring, and so far we haven't had any alarms about animals dying or disappearing. So we always knew that water quality was an issue. The studies were suggesting that the water quality issues would have cleared up after a year or two, and I remember telling Mick that, and it seems that the water quality from the clearing of the reservoir, that problem seems to have melted away, but now we have a different issue.
Yeah, but I don't know whether that's really going to be... Let me just get something in here.
We really only have time for final.
But I need to say one more thing. The VACA project, which is going on now, is going to draw its water from the top of the dam, not from the bottom. And then there's going to be a long penstock. Yeah, it's a run-of-the-river type. Right. But the issue here is that, what I'm saying is that if you have this problem when VACA is on, the problem will be limited to between Chalillo and VACA, because VACA will be bringing the water from the top. So I think that will solve some of your concerns.
We really need to go. I'm sorry, but from the perspective of the Chamber, we pledge to keep the dialogue open. We know there's a lot more to be said. We will continue to monitor the situation.